it's good that you're flexible. It makes you even more of a delight to work with.
Oh, really? It was a delight to work with me. I have to steal
Absolutely,
that quote.
yeah.
I have to steal that
There's
quote and
a
put it in my profile on ACX. Delight to work with, says Laurie Ann.
now that's just virtual. I have not met you in person, so virtually,
okay, right.
yes.
Yes, virtually.
Yeah.
I'm virtually delightful. Yeah, okay. Plainfield was a small, flat, middle-of-nowhere place with long, wide, empty roads, perpetually shadowed beneath dark clouds and surrounded by cornfields. It rained a lot. Thunderstorms every day, with lightning and tornadoes. And there was a lonesome, forlorn feeling that only folks passing through seemed to notice. And when the folks passing through drove on, the bad feeling was forgotten, like a nightmare soon after waking. And that middle-of-nowhere town, what was it called again, was forgotten too. How are you, Laurie? Okay?
Doing well, yeah. It's nice to meet you.
And you too, after working so hard on this amazing book, which of course we're going to talk about because it's now an audiobook, and I was privileged to be chosen to be the narrator for your audiobook. So, The Strange Abduction of Freddy Heddy Hardcrumble, Part 1. Okay, let's get some stuff out the way. I don't mean out the way. Let's go deeper into you. You're in Englewood, Colorado. Yeah?
I'm in Littleton now, which is just a few miles south of Englewood.
Okay, so are they suburbs of Denver?
Yeah, I'm about maybe like a 25-minute drive from downtown Denver.
Okay.
So I'm just south of Denver. Mm-hmm.
I've been to Denver. Yeah, for years I was in radio, and I used to go to a thing called the Morning Show Boot Camp, which is where morning shows from all over, mostly all over America, spend a weekend in a hotel and steal each other's ideas, and there's seminars on different things and what have you. And Denver has a particular memory for me. At the time, and it was a bad idea, I was committing stand-up comedy in the UK. And failing, I might add. It was not pretty. And for some reason I decided, when I'm in Denver at the Morning Show Boot Camp, I'll do it there too. And so there was this open mic night in a bar. I can't remember the name of it, but it was on a street called Broadway, a long, wide street, obviously Broadway. And the name of the bar was the address. So if it was like 261 Broadway or something was the name of the bar. It was right next to a gun shop, which was a bit of a worry. And anyway, I attempted it there, and it was horrible. To say I died is probably an understatement. It was not good. And the place was not good either. The place was like a haircut museum. There were actual mullets in there. It was, it didn't work out. But I was with a guy called Gene from a morning show in South Carolina, Gene and Julie, husband and wife coach. And I came off stage and I said, "What do you think we should do now?" And he said, "Run." And we ran out of the place, ran out into Broadway and hailed a cab back to the hotel. Yeah, it was, and my mistake was, this was in about 2008. And I opened, or was near the beginning of the set, I opened with this joke. And that was, I said, in this hotel, and I named the hotel, I forget which one it was, one of the big ones. I said, is all the top morning shows from the radio or from all over America. I said, so, one carefully placed bomb and you could change the face of morning radio in this country forever. And then and it didn't go well. And so we're only 7 years after 9/11, and I'm like, oh, okay, so we're uncomfortable with terrorism jokes. Okay, well, I grew up with it. We had the IRA in Britain, and, we even celebrate a terrorist called Guy Fawkes who tried to blow up Parliament. We have a festival every year. And the more I went, the deeper hole I dug. And it wasn't pretty. wasn't pretty at all. That's so I've got an unfortunate memory of Denver. But anyway, but you're originally from Illinois.
I am, yeah, about an hour south of Chicago.
Okay, where would that be? I'm not bragging again, but I've been to Chicago, and I drove to Chicago from Memphis up old Route 66, and then it went into anyway. But we went through some lovely places. We stayed in Perryvale, Illinois. I had a tiny little population. Springfield, Illinois. Whereabouts south of Chicago?
I was in Plainfield, which is kind of near Joliet. But
Is it the same Plainfield in the book as is in the book?
There might be.
It's got to be, right?
I'd have to read it again. But
I had no idea it was a real place.
Yeah, lots of plains, lots of fields. I started in Bolingbrook, Illinois, and we moved when I was about 11 to Plainfield. It was right near Joliet, where the Joliet
prison is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We went past the prison. Yeah.
A couple of famous, I don't know if famous is the best word, but I think a couple of serial killers were there. I think John Wayne Gacy was held there or executed there.
Isn't it the one at the beginning of the Blues Brothers movie that John Belushi comes out of too? And Dan Aykroyd picks him up in the police car. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a famous little spot. Yep, that same one. Uh-huh.
So why did you move from Illinois to Colorado?
Well, I came out when I was 18, and I went to the Colorado Film School.
Yes.
So that was kind of a big draw. But before I moved, I was also working in radio at the time.
Which station?
Well, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was 100.7 WRXQ, which was a classic rock station. And then I also did the country station. Yeah. Which was 98.3 WCCQ.
And what did you do?
Well, I started off as an intern. I was in love with radio. I was obsessed. When I was 12, 13 years old, I would wake up on Saturdays at 3:30 in the morning to listen, I guess, kind of stalk my favorite DJs. So I was calling in so much, they kind of knew me when I'd call and would give me some free stuff. And they said, hey, when you're 15, if you want to do an internship, get in touch with us then, which was a couple years away. So I did. And they ended up bringing me on board as an intern. So I did things in the beginning, like filing paperwork with the sales department, coffee, just, things like that. And then slowly progressed to being in the studio and then helping with the morning show. And then when I was 18, so it'd been about 3 years of being an unpaid intern. When I was 18, they hired me as a board operator.
Great. And classic rock, that's a nice format to be on too. It was fun.
It was, it was great. In the beginning, I didn't like country. I was not, I was a teenager, so I liked top 40s, and then I grew to like classic rock as well. But I kind of switched over to the country station and was going back and forth. And you're in the studio and you hear the country songs, and for a while I didn't really pay much attention to them, and then eventually in the studio I was kind of bopping along, and then before you knew it, I was like, yee-haw!
The great thing, I think when I was still going, because I used to go to the US every year to this morning show boot camp. It moved around to different cities. And I think country was the number one music format at the time. In the early 2000s, country was the big format to be on. Yeah.
It was, yeah. So this was probably around 2003 to 2005.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Country was country used to get big numbers. I think in certain cities, the Spanish stations did better, but as an English-speaking music format, country used to be the one, and I think it's because it's just so American. I think people relate to it more, or I lived in Australia for a while, and Australia has a similar feeling about their own. The Australians have a similar feeling about their own country that I think Americans have. I mean, most Australians live in cities, but their identity is with the bush. And I think the same may be true of America, that most Americans live in cities, but they love the cowboy in them, I get that feeling, and so I kind of, because we don't really have, I think we've got like 2 country music stations in the UK for the whole country, because it's not a big format here at all. It's mostly pop music here, and it's hard to understand why country is such a big format in America. But I think it's just because it's very, very American. It's very, very American. Yeah. Yeah, but good couple of formats you worked in there, though. Classic rock and then country. They're biggies.
Yeah, a couple of good ones. I think, though, because I was just a kid, starting out as teenagers, our main thing was the top 40s.
Yeah.
So before 100.7, the classic rock station, it was a top 40s station that everybody in middle school, high school was in love with.
Yeah.
So country's kind of hit or miss with a lot of people, I'd say.
Really?
There's a lot of people that not so much with the country. And I used to be that way, but now I appreciate just about all music.
Yeah. So you gave up this burgeoning radio career, this thing you were obsessed with. You were a fangirl of radio, and then you go to Denver to study film. And how did that work out? That was the Colorado Film School.
It was, yeah. It was great. It was a great program. I missed radio a lot, though, so I ended up getting another internship out here. This one was with, it was with a news station.
Yeah.
Which was different. It was fun. It wasn't as fun. We did things back in Illinois, back in the day, like we had Pizza for You Tuesdays. So we would take the bus out, pick up a whole bunch of pizzas that were donated, and then go to a parking lot and broadcast live. And that was a lot of fun. Radio is so different now.
Oh, it's rubbish. It's so they've sucked all the fun out of it.
Yeah. And I miss it, and I had kind of thought of getting back into it, but I guess now really everyone's podcasting. I don't know that radio is ever going to be like it was before.
No, I think it's had its day. I did 29 years full-time, mostly morning shows in radio here and in Australia. And just before the pandemic, I was a program director of a radio station in London, and they fired me just before the pandemic. And I couldn't even get anyone to interview me during the pandemic. So I started doing audiobooks from home, and I love it. Love it. I couldn't go back to radio now and deal with the sales department and the program directors and the ratings and the pressure and whatever. Now it's just between me and the author of the book I'm working on, and we work together until we put out something that the author's happy with, and that's it, and then move on to the next book. And it's just working with you was so much fun, because you were actually you knew exactly what you wanted. And if I didn't deliver that line right, you went, no, I'll do that one again. It was good. It was good to work with someone who knew exactly what they wanted. Sometimes I'll work with authors, and everybody's different. If somebody wants to work a different way, and I'll do something, and I'll go, they'll say, oh yeah, it's really good, I like it. And I think, I wonder if they really do. But with you, I knew if it wasn't right, you'd say. There was one, wasn't there, where there was an accent? Was there a Cajun accent in one of the characters? And I pronounced a word, one word, that wasn't quite within the accent. And you picked me up and said, no, it should sound more like this. Was it the word yes? And I did it more. I forget what it was now. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It was. I think it was first.
And it was.
Yeah, which Cajun is like it's kind of spelled F-U-S-T, so foist, because sort of.
Yeah. And you made me do it again.
Just a couple times.
Julie says to me, she starts going with that book. I said, oh, it's great. I said, I just had to go in and change a word. She went, really, a word? I said, yeah, it was important. It's a word. Yeah. Now,
I put a warning though in the audition.
You did. No, you did. I think yours was because often when the auditions come up on ACX, when I audition for them, often I think there might be. I think there's supposed to be 3 pages, but how big are the words on a page? Often I will go I'll just do the audition, and when I think I've done enough, I'll put it in. But yours basically said, unless you're prepared to do the whole audition, don't bother. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I forget how many pages it was, but you made me go right to the end. And I think even in the audition, I got a couple of things wrong. and you picked them out and said, like, well, you know, if you're going to do this, you better get these right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably true. Yeah.
No, but that's good. And the thing I learned about you when I had a look on Amazon at your profile on there, and it says, you know, you studied writing and directing at the Colorado Film School. You won awards in the independent film community for your short films. But I also found out you're legally blind.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
Well, that makes total sense working in radio. But in film, I mean, how much can you see?
Yeah, film was a little more difficult, but you have people to do things for you.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing was trying to make sure things were in focus, which you leave that up to your cinematographer. You know,
Yeah.
I would tell him the kind of shot I want. You know, if I want it, let's see, if I want it, you know, straight on, or the person to the side, or this side. So I could tell that much. But if it was in focus or not, or with lighting, I could kind of tell the general idea of what the lighting looked like. But for little nitpicky things, I would sort of tell my cinematographer the feeling I'm going for the scene.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. So there'd probably be, after a while, if you're working with the same person, there'd be a bit of shorthand there. You'd be able to say, I want this kind of vibe or that kind of thing. You'd have to trust them, though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I worked with the same person a few times. He's a really good
Right.
guy, good friend
Yeah.
of mine.
Oh, I found that really interesting. Wow. And so, has your eyesight always been an issue, or did something happen? I don't I don't want to pry too much, and I don't know what the politically correct way to ask that question is. So if you think I'm being rude, just tell me to mind my own business.
I am immediately offended. So
Okay, I can tell. Yeah.
no, I woke up one morning and I rubbed my eyes too hard, and then I just, from there it was downhill.
You rode your
No,
eyes too hard. What?
no, I was born with genetic retinal disease, uh,
Okay.
which is degenerative, and then
Right.
with that, I had cataracts. So I had cataract surgery, and then I have congenital nystagmus, which is the shaking. And with that, I have oscillopathy, which is where everything you see shakes. So there's a whole party going on.
Okay. And so is it stabilized now? Is the way it is now the way it'll stay?
Not necessarily. The doctor said to be optimistic that it might, but there are some people with the retinal disease that I have who end up with just light perception. So,
Wow.
like now, I read a lot. I'm always listening to audiobooks or reading. So, I
Yeah.
primarily read large print books, but there are
Right.
some people with eye disease who they get to a point where they just see light. So,
That must
everybody's
be
kind
good. Must be good these days with an ebook, because with an ebook you can choose the size of the font, which you can't obviously in a paper book.
I'm not the biggest fan of ebooks. I like paper. I think just working on a computer, I just like being off of a screen. I
Right.
know everybody says I should get an ebook, but I like having paper books.
Okay. All right. So what were you reading as a kid? What was inspiring you?
Oh, as a kid, a little kid.
Yeah. What first books really got you into reading, got you hooked?
Well, that's kind of difficult to say. So, as a little kid, I remember reading Goosebumps,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I think it was called Animorphs, where the people can turn into animals.
Right.
Uh, and I remember reading something about a mouse. But then it got to the point where I wasn't really able to.
A
I
kid's
wasn't
book about a mouse. You haven't really narrowed it down, Laurie, but yeah, okay.
yeah, it was very good though. I remember. Um, but then as you get older, the font isn't as big. So I recall being in middle school, and I think during a break we were supposed to sit and read for 40 minutes. And I remember it was Dracula, which is standard print. And I
Hmm.
just spent the 40 minutes just trying to read one of the pages, and I just couldn't. I just, trying to read if it was the. And nobody really knew the extent of my vision loss, so I didn't really understand what was going on. I just thought I'm kind of different, and I could see other kids turning pages, and I'm still on the same page. So it was probably, I think, in high school when I got some actual large print books, and in that day, the books were like 3 feet tall.
Wow.
So they don't have those anymore, but we got these I think they were delivered by a low vision teacher that I had. So I got these books, and for the class assignment, we just had to pick one and read it. But I was so excited to finally be able to read that I just read them all, which I think was like 5 books. So
Right.
it was
Do you know
kind
what kind of stuff that was?
oh, the book that I read?
Yeah.
One of them was about, it's a true story about the Ebola virus.
Okay.
And about someone, it follows a few people who had the Ebola virus. It was very graphic, but it was really well written.
Because what I'm looking for is I'm trying to find out what attracted you to write the book and what the inspiration was for the strange abduction of Freddy Heddy Hardcrumble. Because this is quite a dark book. And in some ways it's quite a sad book because Freddy, she's not one of life's winners. That doesn't mean she's not strong and doesn't have, a determined character and a will to want something better for her life, but she's ended up in a pretty rubbish place in her life before she gets abducted. I'm just wondering where the inspiration for all that came from.
She has, but what's interesting is I think there's a lot of people out there that are like that, because to her, she's pretty content, just like most everybody in the town. It's kind
Yeah.
of from what she came from to what she has now. This is all right for her life to be this way until she dies. She
Yeah.
doesn't really want anything better for herself, and she doesn't know. All she knows is kind of the big city is sort of symbolic for all the other things that are out in the world. So she
Mm-hmm.
knows of it, but she's never
Mm-hmm.
seen it. She's never been there. And kind of the kidnapping sort of could be seen as a blessing in disguise, because otherwise maybe she would have never left that town.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the book starts and it threads through because you change perspective because it starts with her, she's a prisoner. And then you're filling in the details of her backstory and of her life up until that point. But you focus in on the plastic fake food that she's discovered, and she's realizing that it is plastic even though she's starving. Why did you use that as a device? Because it is quite clever. It works really well. What was the inspiration behind that?
I don't know if I can answer that. That's a good question. I guess the only
Because
answer I can.
what it does is when you read it, when I read it, it helped me realize just how, desperate a situation she was in, that she would try to eat plastic food when it was clearly plastic, but she's thinking, well, maybe it's just a cover, or she's got that hope. So it did as a device, it worked really well to show that there was that hope there, even though it was a delusional hope, but also that the desperation of the situation she was in. I was just wondering if there was something that pointed you to that.
Well, her character kind of develops from the beginning of looking at the plastic in her situation, and she's very neat with everything from the painting to rolling up the cereal boxes. But she kind of changes, one from desperation, but then also her mind might be going just a little bit from the captivity and
Yeah.
lack of food. So she sort of
Yeah.
goes to a place that she's never been, and her brain has to work in a way that it probably never would have if this hadn't happened to her.
Yeah, because her life was pretty regimented, wasn't it? She knew exactly when her shift was, what to expect, and then she ends up in the bar from the waitressing, and then there's an incident there, so you get to see. Yeah, is there any of you in Freddy?
Of course not. Absolutely not.
I'm just. Well, where does she come from then?
I don't know. I guess probably I'm in every character. Maybe not consciously, but
Yeah.
I would imagine so.
Do you think that you could have ended up like Freddy if you'd have stayed in Plainville?
No, things were going really well. I was working in
Okay.
radio. Things were pretty
Right.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But did you know people in Plainville like Freddy then?
No. No.
Where's she come from, Laurie?
I'll have to check in on that and probably get back to you.
Okay. Okay, because she is an interesting character, and I know by the end of the book I'm like, what now? What happens now? You make well, you made me care so much about her and some of the other lesser characters as well, but her mainly is like there was a I felt a deep caring for her by the end of the book. Can you tell us? Can you give us a clue to where this story will eventually go, or is that a little bit too much? I don't want
Well,
to
I'm glad.
spoil anything.
No, not at all. I'm glad to hear you say that because there are two more parts. So,
Right,
um, the second part is probably about 65% done.
right.
The third part isn't even. That's. I'll probably know more when I get the second part done. But
Do you know where where the three are going? Have you got it kind of mapped out in your mind?
it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
I I probably think about it all throughout the day, along with the other projects.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm working on other things, so I float between the second part. I have the name. It's part two is Orlo, which
Mm-hmm.
is the detective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I rotate between that, the second part of Freddy, and then there's a novel that I'm working on, and then another short story and another novel. So I'm always sort of rotating between things.
So when you say you've got other projects on, are they all writing projects? Are you doing other stuff as well?
Writing, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Everything is writing. I do a little bit of video stuff. Um, and then I compete in writing competitions, just like short stories and things like that. So I'm always submitting to this or that.
I saw a couple of YouTube videos you'd done, and there's a dog in there that features pretty prominently. You're very, very close to the dog.
Oh yes, yeah, Bindi.
What's it? So that's who Bindi is, because that was
Yeah,
going to be one of my it's because the book starts by saying for Bindi, and
yeah,
Bindi is the dog.
yeah. She's right down here right now. Too high up to go to. She weighs 80 pounds. Otherwise, I'd hold her up.
So how important is she then?
Oh, she's very important. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
she knows I'm talking about her. Hi,
And
baby.
what breed is she?
Let me see. Hold on one second.
Okay. Hey, Bendy. Hello, sweetheart. Oh, you're beautiful. Look at you. Hello, Bendy. Oh, what a beautiful dog. Oh, she's lovely. So, how long has she been part of your life?
She just turned 7 in April, so I've had her since she was about 9 weeks old.
Yeah.
She was
And
about this big.
and what is she?
Boxer lab mix, kind of a
Yeah.
mix. It's what her
Yeah.
paperwork says. So,
Yeah, we got a dog about 3 months ago. First dog we ever had, Rafa, and we don't know what he is. He came from Spain. He was rescued from Spain, from the Canary Islands. It's part of Spain, but it's off the coast of North Africa. So he's got an English winter to get through yet. And
oh yeah,
we had him about 3 months, and he's completely changed our lives. But we've no idea what he is. He looks like. He looks like he's got beagle in there or some kind of foxhound, but I'm sure there's terrier in there too, because he does like if he sees rabbits or squirrels, he's off. And they're just wonderful companions, aren't they? So special.
yeah, she's
So
great. Which video with Bindi in it did you
it
see?
was the one where you were camping. You were like climbing mountains, and there's a lot of still pictures in there as well. You're in a tent. It starts with the sound of the rain on the canvas, and then the credits, and then I think we see Bindi pretty early on then in the video. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a weekend before last.
Oh, was it? Oh, well, I got oh, I'm right up to date. I'm not stalking you or anything, but I just thought, like, when it said, award-winning filmmaker, I thought, oh, I'll see if there's anything on YouTube.
Well, did you happen to look at the other videos?
No, just that was the main one I had a look at. Which one would you recommend?
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah,
I say you started off pretty good.
yeah.
I have a rap video on there.
Oh no, I did see that. I did see that one.
Yeah,
Yes, you're a good rapper.
I try.
Yeah, no, I did see that one. That's a nice short one. Yeah, I did have a look
Yeah,
at that this morning.
Yeah, most of the videos are fairly short. So, but
Yeah,
I win a couple awards, but that's in the independent film community. So
yeah,
nothing too
yeah.
major. And that was a while ago.
Well, look at you. You're doing all this stuff. And you got me to narrate the strange abduction of Freddy Heddy Hardcrumble. Have you had audiobooks done before from your work?
Yes, I have my first novel,
Yes.
which was
What's it called?
uh, Dear Aunt Catherine.
Dear Aunt Catherine, I'll put a link to that in the description. Obviously, I'll put a link to The Strange Abduction of Freddy Heddy Hardcrumble, but I'll put a link to that one in there as well on Amazon. So you can watch. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, get the links and download them. So that was your first ever novel. So you turned that into an audiobook.
Yes, yeah, she did a great job. The narrator, we never spoke like this, but she was in New York and she trained as a voice actress at NYU. And
Yes,
she
wow.
just like you, she was very good, able to do. So I think there's about 7 different accents in the novel.
Yeah,
She did all of them very well.
yeah.
And then this is a short story,
Yes, what's that one called?
Birdie Nook.
Birdie Nook. I'll put a link to that one too. And yeah. And that one's an audiobook as well?
It is, yes. It's kind of a monster in the closet type of a scary character study about a girl named Birdie Nook.
And who's the narrator on those?
The first one, the novel, is Rachel Music.
Yeah.
And then Birdie Nook was by A.W. Miller.
Yeah. Okay.
And he did a really good job as well.
So how do you find the whole process then of, because to me, I get overwhelmed at the beginning of the awesome responsibility. It's like, this is somebody's work. They've put blood, sweat and tears and they've rethought every line and now they're giving it to me to read it out. Jeez. So how did you find the experience of turning your work into audiobooks?
It was definitely a learning experience. So Dear Aunt Catherine was the first one. And I kind of learned just posting an audition script how important that is.
Yeah.
And that you really do need to put a sampling of all the different characters, or you might get a narrator and then find out when you need an Australian accent, they sound like they're from South Carolina or something. So which happened with Dear Aunt Catherine. When I first posted the audition script and people started submitting, I kind of went back and added some more diversity.
Yeah.
And then also more specific with what accent is going to be needed.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a learning experience, which I took into the next one, which was Birdie Nook, which I do believe you had auditioned for as well.
Oh, really? And I've obviously I failed. I was just no good at that.
It was terrible. No.
I'm surprised you even listened to my other one then for Freddy Heddy.
I listened to every, and you were great. And honestly, it came down to you, A.W. Miller, and I think one other guy, and then it was down to you and A.W. Miller, which I ended up going with Miller. Mm-hmm. But it was, it was really difficult to choose between you and the other narrator.
And was A.W. Miller, are they American?
I believe he is in the United States. We've never spoken aside from email and messaging
ACX
back and forth
messages. Yeah,
that's pretty much it. So I think he is in the United States though.
Okay, because the thing I tend to do, I mean, I do books in all sorts of accents. I've done them. I recently did the whole book as a New Zealander. But what I do with a lot of American ones, if they're written that way, if they're not written from first person, and I did this with yours, is I do the characters in the local American accent, but I do the narration as British, just so that the narrator stands just slightly outside the story. And I find that kind of works well, and a lot of authors I work with like that. And a lot of them tell me they never imagined it any other accent than an American accent for the whole thing, but having the narrator as a British, because I think my British accent is quite a neutral one. It's not a Cockney one like that, or it isn't too posh like that. I think it's a bit more neutral, so it works well just to tell the story, and then have the characters come in as their local accents. Did you find that worked for you? Well, you must have done. You paid me.
Right, you would think so, yeah. Yeah, I thought that was brilliant because I like the story being told kind of like the old audiobooks back in the day. I don't know if you remember when they had music and sound effects, and it was
Yes.
sort of like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you're listening to a movie.
Yeah.
And
Radio play. Yeah.
yeah, radio play. While this doesn't have music and sound effects, it has
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah, it is kind of the modern way now. Is the story is just told like a book, like somebody reading you a book these days. Yeah, which I think, I think there is a place for music and sound effects, but I think if you want to, when I was in radio, it was drummed into us, particularly when I was first started in radio school in Australia, that radio is a one-to-one medium, that people are usually listening to the radio on their own. You don't talk to a group of people, you talk to a single person. So you don't say, coming up, I'm going to give you all a chance to win some tickets. You go, coming up, I'll give you a chance to win some tickets. You do it one-to-one. And so I think with audiobooks, which are definitely listened to by somebody on their own, it makes it more one-to-one. If you start putting the music and the sound effects in, it makes it more theatrical, so you feel like you're, I don't know if I'm making sense here, but I think without the music and the sound effects, when it is down to the narrator's voice only, it does make it a more one-to-one and personal experience. And I think that's why modern audiobooks very rarely have music and sound effects in them, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't know if you agree.
Some of them I've heard with music and sound effects have been very good. I listened to Romeo and Juliet, which they use different actors for all of the different parts.
Yes.
And that had music, and that worked really well. That was like listening to a movie. Okay. But I do agree, some of the other ones, it's kind of distracting or too much, or if the voice is too low and the music is too high, it doesn't work.
It's also difficult to get them to pass. I mean, I've done things where the people have wanted, bizarrely, some business books like to have the opening statements and stuff with some kind of a music bed underneath it, and it's actually quite difficult to do it and still meet the exacting ACX specifications for the audio, because they like to have a noise floor with a certain number, and sometimes it's a computer, an algorithm thing. It'll hear the music in the background and think that's like background noise, like traffic, and it'll knock it back. And it really, the ones I've done that way have been a bit fiddly as well. Yeah.
Okay, I found a video of you talking about radio and what you do to get more people to call in as opposed to text.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting thing.
I really liked that.
That was at the Royal Institution in London, and they have a radio conference there every year called Next Radio. And that particular room is where people, old, scientists, we're talking Isaac Newton and Darwin and people, I mean, maybe not even that far back, but they're that is the room where these scientists proposed certain scientific theories through the years. So it's a really old building. It was really weird to be, a bloke who spent 29 years making his living telling fart jokes, to be actually speaking at an industry conference in a place like that was pretty bizarre for me. But that was when I was at Bob FM in the home counties. I'm glad you watched that. Oh, so you've been stalking me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I hired you and after.
All right, just to make sure I was genuine, I could have put anything in my pitch, couldn't I? Oh yeah, I've been in radio and I won awards, and I see when let's just see if he really has. Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm fairly thorough.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, it almost looked like a TED Talks kind of thing. So I was wondering where that was. Yeah,
it was that kind of a conference. It was a conference where you got to speak for either 9 minutes or 18 minutes. And they asked me to speak, and they said, would you like to speak for 9 minutes or 18? And I went, I get to choose. And they went, yeah. I said, I'll do 9 minutes. Thank you very much. And so I made my talk, condensed it down to 9 minutes with the audio clips from Australia and then the ones from the TV and stuff that I put in there. And I think I packed it all in packed a lot in the 9 minutes that I was allotted, and it was a lot of fun. I met some nice people there, and they were all British radio industry people. It was an industry convention. Next Radio was the name of the conference, and but it was just an honor to be speaking in that room. Yeah.
Yeah, Next Media was the corporation that owned our stations back in the day.
Well, there's no way this was related to an American radio station owner. No, but
no, I don't think so. I think the 9 minutes was a good call. It's probably better to kind of keep it short and leave them wanting rather than drag it on the full 18 to the point where people are like, all right, how many minutes has this been?
I could have done 18, but there was some very high-profile speakers. They fly them in from all over the world to speak at that, and it's only... London is only 30 miles down the road from me, central London. So I figured, if I'm up against them, if I know I can hit them hard and I can do a tight 9, but if you want an 18, it's probably not good. Don't know whether I can do 18 of good stuff. I know I can do 9 and keep them interested, and I could spread it to 18, but I don't know if some, you only need a couple of dips in it and that's it, you're finished, you know what I mean? And it also comes back to working in radio, as you know, where, if you're on a music format, you're up against it. You can't waffle on for too long because you do lose them, and you've got to get back on and get the tunes playing again, because that's why they tuned in to a music station, is for the music. So, you know, you can
just
only...
one flick of the dial and they're gone.
Yeah, or a push button thing, or even worse, you're still on, but they've mentally tuned out. That's got to be worse than them actually pushing the button. It's like you're just droning away and they're not even listening. Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because I didn't realize how drastic a decrease there was in people calling in, that people were texting.
Yeah, when I first started in radio in Australia, it was just so... I think there were 10... lines that flashed that we had, and I was on from 7 till midnight weeknights, and there was pretty much never a time when all 10 lines weren't flashing. People wanting to get through, because there was no email. They couldn't email you, they couldn't text you. But now there are so many other ways to contact radio stations that the guys on the air don't even answer the phone, which is really tragic, because the amount of great original content you get from the people on the phone is way better than anything a bored, jaded disc jockey can say. And it's much, much better, more interesting, and more unpredictable.
That is shocking, because, when I was a kid and in love with radio, I mean, me and one of my best friends, we would spend hours just trying to get through to the station and just listening, and when they tell you to call in. And I remember the very first time we got on air, it was just nothing but 2 12-year-old girls screaming because we were on the radio. And I remember my friend's dad storming into the room, and he said, "What's the matter?" We're like, "We're on the radio." It was just so exciting. So it is shocking to find out people are just texting, because I mostly listen to Pandora now, so I'm not too up on the radio scene anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and I listen to podcasts these days. I didn't... I can tell you that I turned the radio on once today, and it wasn't even a radio, it was Alexa. And I told it to turn on the radio while I went out and picked up my wife from work, because I wanted it to sound like there's somebody in the flat. So that's the only time I turned it on, was to turn it on to not listen to it. I turned it on to then leave the flat. Anything else, even in the car, I listen to podcasts. I listened to Bill Maher today. They do a podcast of his real-time show. That's the only thing I've listened to today. Mind you, I'm recording all day, so I don't get a chance to listen. I'm working on 7 audiobooks at the moment. I always work on multiple books. I like to do a chapter or a couple of chapters of each and make sure I can switch. And I have audio files of each. When the new character arrives in a book, I take out a little clip of me doing that character for the first line they say. If it's only a short line, it's the second line, so there's a good chunk there. So that when that character comes up again, I can go back and listen to how I did it to make sure I've got it right. And I did that with yours. Sometimes with authors, there's an author who I work with. I've just done a second book with him, a children's book, and there's lots of different wild characters in kids' books, and I will send him just clips of the characters first, and he will approve them before I even start. Did I do that with you? I didn't do that with you, did I? Did I do them as we went?
You did not, no.
Yeah. Well, we can do that with the next one if you want. If that's the way you want to go. It's just everybody works differently, but it's just you're the boss. You call the shots, and that's the way it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good that you're flexible. It makes you even more of a delight to work with.
Oh, really? It was a delight to work with me. I have to steal
Absolutely,
that quote.
yeah.
I have to steal that
There's
quote and put it in my profile on ACX. Delight to work with, says Laurie Ann.
No, that's just virtual. I have not met you in person, so virtually,
okay, right.
yes.
Yes, virtually.
Yeah.
I'm virtually delightful. Yeah, okay.
Well, no, that almost sounds like an insult. Virtually.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's the problem with modern language not keeping up with the modern world, isn't it? Okay, so you've got two more of these, at least two more of these to go, and you've got other books, you've got other work on as well that'll be coming out soon that people can look out for.
Yeah, I'm working on. Oh, did I lose you?
No, I'm there. I'm still there.
Yeah, might have to edit that out.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm working on a novel. It's called Hope Falls, and it's kind of a Western romance. Still a work in progress, but it's about this little town called Hope Falls in the middle of nowhere back in the early to mid 1800s.
Yeah.
And a little girl goes missing, so the sheriff has to get involved.
Right.
So
Well,
hoping to have that released. Yeah, hoping that'll be released in probably January, I hope.
Right. So plenty going on for you.
Yeah, a lot of writing. And it was funny, my friend bought a copy of Freddy, and she sent me a picture, and she said, "It's so small." She said, "But it's cute, though, because it's the same size as Birdie, the paperback."
Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah, I suppose it isn't that long. In the audiobook was only a few hours, wasn't it? A couple of hours.
I think it was under 2. I think it hit
Was
it
it was
right
under
at
2?
about an hour and 50 minutes. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so
Right.
the next 2 parts, the next 2 parts will be probably the same length. So all 3 smushed together will be a novel.
Yeah, you'll have to, once all 3 are together, you'll have to do they call it a bundle, where you bundle the audiobooks together. I've done that for authors before when I've done a series of science fiction and a series of romance, and we bundle them together and they sell them on Audible as a bundle, as a special deal, and they seem to sell really well. The feedback I get is when you bundle them, because I think most audiobook sales are the people who have Audible memberships and they use their credits and they get 1 credit a month. So they think, hey, I can get 3 books for the 1 credit. Whatever their monthly fee is, like $10 or something. And I think that's why bundles do tend to go quite well. So that'll be something worth thinking about when the time comes.
Yeah, I checked out one of your recent publications. I think it was a romance that you recently released, and that like it was a bundle. And I listened to the sample of that, and it sounded really good.
Yeah. They're easy to do. It's so easy to put the bundles together because I don't have to do any recording. I just have to edit them together. It's and load up each chapter, and I'd have to record a opening and closing credits for the bundle, but the opening and closing credits for each individual book and each chapter just run in order then. And the thing with the bundle is there's nothing you miss out on. It's not like they cut anything out to get them. It's everything that was in the original books. Yeah, I think that was that the romance one was a series of about 6 books in the one bundle. Is that the one?
I didn't look on Audible. I checked it out on Amazon, and it had quite a few reviews, about at least 1,000 reviews, but I think there were at least 3 parts to it.
Yeah.
And the sample that I listened to was really good. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. Oh, well, it'll come back to you. The Strange Abduction of Freddy Heddy Hardcrumble. Where does the name, by the way, Freddy Heddy Hardcrumble, where does that come from?
I can't tell people the name of it without them saying what or laughing immediately. I'm really big on names, so I go to the graveyard sometimes and I look at the headstones and I see interesting names, older names, and I'll write them down.
Wow.
Or if I meet somebody and they just have an interesting first name or a name that sounds, I think Hardcrumble was something I made up. It might be someone's real last name, but I think I took it from two different places. Probably Hard was part of a name and Crumble was, I can't remember, but it's also kind of like Freddy because she's
Yeah.
kind of hard,
Yeah.
but she also
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
crumbles.
Yeah. No, it's a great name for it. The Strange Abduction of Freddy Heddy Hardcrumble by Laurie Ann Pokin. It's available now as an ebook, as a paper book, as or whatever you call it, a traditional book, classic book, and also as an audiobook too. And I was lucky enough to be selected as the narrator, and it is a lot of fun. Well, I say it's a lot. It was a lot of fun to record. It's a story that's on the dark side. Well, the title is The Strange Abduction. What do you want? A fairy tale?
It is on the stranger side.
Yeah, it is. It is great. All the links to that and other Laurie Ann Pokin stuff are in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. And check it out. Laurie Ann, it was fabulous to meet you finally. After we've worked together on this for so long, we've got it out there. And thanks and continued success.
Yes, you as well. You did a great job. It was really fun working on it with you.